I never thought I'd be the one holding the smoking gun, figuratively, at least, staring down the barrel of my own shattered life in a federal courtroom, the judge's gavel cracking like thunder over my confession. But there I was, 28 years old, Blakely Harlan, the golden boy of Chicago's South Side, admitting to embezzling $2.7 million from the family construction firm, my hands cuffed, but my heart already plotting the noose for the real thief, my brother, Ethan. He'd framed me with a smile that morning over coffee, whispering, "Family sticks together, right?" as he slipped the forged ledgers into my briefcase. His gift, he'd called it, for my big promotion. And just like that, the brother I'd covered for since we were kids, the one who'd crashed Dad's truck drunk at 16, the one I'd lied to Mom about beating up that dealer in high school, had turned the knife, leaving me to rot while he toasted to his clean escape at the firm's holiday party. The irony? That briefcase, monogrammed with my initials in gold leaf, had been his wedding present to me 5 years back when we were unbreakable. Now it sat on the evidence table, unzipped like a traitor's mouth, spilling out the digital trail that led straight to my fabricated guilt. As the bailiff led me away, the courtroom buzzed with whispers, reporters scribbling about the Harlan heist. My face splashed across the Trib's front page under headlines screaming, "Blue-collar betrayal." But I didn't break eye contact with Ethan, seated in the back row beside our mother, his arm around her shoulders, feigning shock. His eyes, cold as Lake Michigan in January. That look alone was the hook in my gut, reeling me toward the revenge I'd brew in a 6x8 cell at Cook County Jail. Freedom was a pipe dream, but payback? That was the American dream I'd chase, one shank-sharpened tooth at a time. They say prison time sharpens the mind like a whetstone on steel, and mine turned from blunt resentment to a razor-edged vendetta over those first 6 months inside. Danville minimum security wasn't supermax hell, but it was a pressure cooker of forgotten men, ex-cops, small-time hustlers, guys who'd once flipped burgers at White Castle now flipping shivs in the yard. I kept my head down, traded cigarettes for legal advice from a lifer named Rico who'd done bird for tax evasion back when Reagan was raiding unions. Revenge ain't about the kill, kid. He'd rasp over lukewarm Joe in the mess hall, his tattoos from Nam fading like old regrets. It's about making him live with the echo. Echo. That word stuck, bouncing in my skull like a ricochet as I pieced together Ethan's web from smuggled letters and a burner phone Rico's nephew snuck in during conjugals. Ethan hadn't just framed me. He'd orchestrated a symphony of deceit that started long before the ledgers. Flashback to 2018. The summer Dad's heart gave out mid-board meeting, clutching his chest while pitching a bid on the O'Hare expansion. I'd been 25, fresh out of community college with a business cert and dreams of union carpentry, but Ethan, the slick MBA from Northwestern, had swooped in like a hawk on roadkill. "Blakely, you're the face. Blue-collar charm sells," he'd said, slapping my back at the funeral repast, Mom's Jell-O salad sweating on the Formica table. I'd believed him, signed the proxy papers without a second read, thinking blood was thicker than ink. But those docs? They weren't just power of attorney. They were the keys to the kingdom, letting him siphon funds into offshore shells while I busted my knuckles overseeing crews on frozen scaffolds. The secret he'd buried? Dad hadn't died clean. That heart attack? Triggered by a heated call Ethan took in the office the week before. Me overhearing fragments about cooking the books for a city inspector on the take. Ethan had covered it up, paid off the right palms, and pinned the original skim on me retroactively when the feds started sniffing after an anonymous tip. Who tipped them? His own wife, Lena, my ex-fiancée, the one who'd left me at the altar 2 years prior, citing my instability. Turns out, instability meant not being able to match Ethan's corner office climb. She'd married him 6 months later, a shotgun wedding in Vegas that Mom called fated. Fated my ass. Lena knew about the skim because she'd helped initiate it, her daddy's real estate firm needing Harlan cash to bail out a bad loop development. Inside, I mapped it out on prison issue paper, folding it into origami birds I burned in the toilet bowl, flames licking secrets like forbidden kisses. Ethan was the villain straight out of a Scorsese script, charming as hell in boardrooms, venomous in the shadows. He'd flip alliances like pancakes, cozying up to the DA for immunity whispers, then ghosting him when the heat turned. Controversial? Hell, he once testified against a union boss who'd stiffed our dad on wages, painting himself the hero while the guy did 18 months. But that boss, he'd been feeding our family intel on corrupt aldermen for years. Ethan's justice starved Mom's pantry for a month. Now, with me inside, he'd flipped again, courting investors at the firm, promising streamlined ops, while bleeding it dry for his yacht fund. Parole came after 22 months, a bureaucratic miracle greased by Rico's connections and my squeaky clean record. No priors, just that one fall. I stepped out into a muggy July dawn, the gates clanging shut like a bad memory, clutching a paper bag with my old jeans and that damned briefcase, released as personal effects. Mom waited in her '98 Impala, eyes red-rimmed under the brim of her Cubs cap, but no sign of Ethan. "He's at a conference, baby," she lied, voice cracking like thin ice. We drove south on I-94, WBBM droning about heat waves and a Bears preseason flop, the city skyline mocking me with its unscarred gleam. Home was the same walk-up in Bridgeport, linoleum floors sticky with ghost grease, Dad's easy-bake tools still rusting in the garage. But the fridge hummed emptier, Mom's hands shakier from double shifts at the Jewelosco. That night, over pierogies and Iron City beers, she spilled fragments. Ethan and Lena's miracle pregnancy, a boy due in October. The firm rechristened Harlan Legacy Partners, my name scrubbed from the marquee like a curse. "He misses you, Blakely. Says it's all a misunderstanding." Misunderstanding. I nodded, fork scraping plate. But inside, the echo Rico promised was building, a low roar in my veins. I didn't tell her about the plan hatching in my gut. Infiltrate the Legacy Gala, the firm's annual schmooze fest at the Palmer House, where Chicago's elite would toast Ethan's ascent. The briefcase? My Trojan horse. I'd gutted it in the joint, hollowed the lining, and now it held not ledgers, but a USB drive. Rico's nephew had hacked Ethan's cloud backups, unearthing emails, wire transfers, even a voice memo of Ethan laughing with Lena about Blakely taking the heat like a champ. The gala loomed 2 months out, a countdown I filled with odd jobs, hauling scrap at a South Side yard, nights spent in dive bars nursing Jameson and eavesdropping on ex-cons' grudges. Chicago's underbelly was a vein of resentment, pulsing with guys Ethan had screwed over. A foreman he blackballed for union talk, a subcontractor bankrupted by delayed payments. I didn't recruit an army. Revenge is personal, a solo waltz with the devil. But I listened, filed names, let their bitterness fuel mine. Lena's betrayal cut deepest. Not just the wedding, but the letters she'd sent me in the joint, all honeyed regret. "I never meant for this, Blake. Ethan's changed. Changed. Or revealed." I'd loved her fierce, the kind of love that built bonfires in winter backyards, her laugh cutting through blizzards like a siren's call. Now, that love curdled to acid, etching her face into my nightmares. As September bled into October, the plan solidified. I'd pose as a caterer, easy lift, with my build and Irish mug blending into the white jacket brigade. The briefcase would ride in plain sight, a prop for delivering docs to Ethan's suite. At the climax, during toasts under crystal chandeliers, I'd flip the script, plug the USB into the AV system, let the emails and memos play like a confessional reel. No guns, no fists, just truth, raw and unfiltered, forcing the room to choose sides. Would they see Ethan the savior or the snake? Controversial as hell. Exposing him meant tanking the firm, jobs lost in a recession bite, Mom's nest egg vaporized. But letting him win? That was swallowing glass, every shard a reminder of the kid brother I'd shielded from Dad's belt, now wielding it like a crown. The night arrived slick as a fresh scar, October 15th, a Friday the firm dressed in black tie finery. I'd bulked up on jail protein, arms like coiled rebar under the starched shirt, and the briefcase hung heavy from my shoulder, its weight a promise. The Palmer's ballroom thrummed with jazz from a combo, air thick with Chanel and cigar haze, power players from City Hall rubbing elbows with Wall Street wolves. I wheeled a dessert cart through the throng, eyes scanning for Ethan. There, center stage, in a bespoke Tom Ford suit, Lena radiant beside him in emerald silk, her hand on a belly just starting to round. She looked happy. God damn it. She looked happy. And for a split second, the old ache flared, hot as a blowtorch. I nodded to the maitre d', a greasy kid from my old neighborhood, and slipped toward the green room where the AV rig waited, a laptop hooked to projectors like veins to a heart. Heartbeats thundered in my ears as I knelt, briefcase at my feet, unzipping it with fingers steady from months of visualization. The USB slotted in smooth, files blooming on the screen. O'Hare bid. Cook the numbers. B. Signs off. My forged signature, scanned and stamped. Then Ethan's voice, tinny but unmistakable. Blakely's too loyal to squeal. We'll blame the unions if it leaks. Laughter, Lena's included, sharp, complicit. I hit loop, volume cranked, and melted back into the shadows, card abandoned, briefcase clutched like a talisman. The toast hit at 9:15 sharp, Ethan stepping to the podium amid applause, his grin wide as the Mississippi. To legacy, he boomed, flute raised, built on trust, sweat, and unbreakable bonds. The room echoed it, clinks of crystal, murmurs of agreement, until the speakers crackled, his own words bleeding in like a ghost at the feast. Gasps rippled first, then a hush thick as fog off the lake. I watched from the service door, pulse jackhammering, as faces turned, the alderman paling, investors frowning. Mom. Oh Christ, Mom. In the front row, her hand flying to her mouth. Ethan's smile froze, cracking at the edges as he whirled toward the booth, barking, cut it. Technical glitch. But glitches don't argue back. The reel rolled on. Wire confirmations to Cayman accounts. Lena's email. Babe, the inspector wants $50K by Friday. Use Blake's dummy corp. And that final gut punch, the voice memo from Dad's last week. Ethan hissing into a phone. If he pushes, we'll bury it with the kid's record. He's clean. I'm not getting pinched. Clean. The word I'd clung to, the lie I'd worn like a hair shirt. Chaos erupted, shouts from the back, a woman shrieking fraud. As security swarmed the AV, too late. Ethan lunged for the laptop, yanking cords, but the damage bloomed viral. Phones out, live streams firing to LinkedIn and X, hashtags igniting like dry tinder. I slipped into the fray, briefcase bumping elbows, aiming for the exit where Mom huddled with a cluster of old-timers. Her eyes met mine, shock, then a flicker of knowing, and she whispered, Blakely, what have you done? Done? I'd undone the noose he'd tied, but the rope lashed back, coiling around us all. Ethan spotted me then, barreling through the crowd like a bull in a china shop of egos, face purpled with rage. You son of a... He grabbed my lapel, breath hot with bourbon, the briefcase tumbling between us. Fists clenched, but he held, smart, with cams rolling, but his whisper was venom. This ends you, brother. For good. Lena hovered behind, eyes wide, one hand cradling her bump, the other reaching tentative. Blake, please. Think of the baby. The baby. Ethan's heir, or mine. That thought struck like lightning, forking my resolve. In the joint, I'd pored over her letters, the math not adding up. Our last night together, unprotected in a fevered goodbye before she ghosted. 9 months from March. October due date. I dismissed it as paranoia, but Rico's nephew's hack had pulled medical PDFs from her cloud. Consults dated weeks after the altar bust. Not Ethan's timeline. The twist coiled tighter as sirens wailed outside. Feds, tipped by my anonymous relay. Cuffing Ethan mid-denial. The room fracturing into factions. Some cheered my justice, toasting the underdog. Others hissed saboteur, eyeing me like the firm killer I might be. We spilled onto Monroe Street. Autumn chill biting through thin wool. Protesters already massing with signs. Harlan Heist. Who pays? Mom clutched my arm, tears carving tracks in her rouge, but her grip said forgiveness. Or was it fear? Ethan, zip-tied in the paddy wagon's maw, locked eyes one last time, mouthing monster through the grate. Monster. The word echoed Rico's warning, but whose shadow was longer? Lena lingered on the curb, coat billowing like a shroud, her gaze a battlefield. Regret, accusation, something softer I couldn't name. We need to talk, she called, voice lost in the scrum, but I turned, briefcase heavy as original sin, melting into the L train's underbelly. The fallout hit like a Category 5, over Lakeshore Drive. Headlines screaming, Brothers Revenge. Harlan Empire crumbles. My face pixelated beside Ethan's mugshot, the trib digging into the love triangle angle with tabloid glee. The firm folded overnight, assets seized, jobs evaporating like morning mist over the loop. Mom sold the house for pennies, relocating to a senior high-rise in Pilsen, her calls laced with silence heavier than sobs. "You did what you had to, son," she'd say. But the echo lingered. Widows facing foreclosure, crews on food stamps, the ripple of my truth, drowning innocence. I holed up in a flophouse off Division, days blurring into stakeouts at Lena's Lincoln Park brownstone, nights wired on black coffee and what-ifs. Ethan lawyered up fast, top dollar from Cook County connections, pleading a joint venture gone wrong, painting me the unstable ex-con with a grudge. Bail set at $5 million, posted by a mystery donor, her father, the real estate shark who'd profited from our skim. Controversial as a blind trust in a mayoral race. Me? No charges yet, self-defense of reputation, they called it, but the heat simmered, detectives circling like gulls over a pier spill. The briefcase stayed zipped, USB extracted and couriered to a Times reporter with a nose for corruption, but its contents haunted me. Not just crimes, but confessions. Ethan's memo admitting he'd pushed Dad into that fatal stress, knowing the old man's ticker was a time bomb. Collateral for the climb, he'd slurred. Collateral. Like I had been. Lena reached out via burner. Texts cryptic as smoke signals. Coffee? For us. Us. The word pulled like gravity, and against every screaming nerve, I met her at a dive on Armitage, Formica tables scarred like old wounds, the jukebox crooning Springsteen about working-class ghosts. She slid in opposite, no makeup, hair in a careless pony, the bump now a soft curve under her sweater. He's out. Posting bond. But Blake, it's yours. The words dropped like a live wire, sparking memories. That night, her tears on my pillow, whispers of forever before the dawn shattered it. Ethan had known. Hell, he'd used it, accelerating the frame to bury paternity questions in the scandal. Why tell me now? I rasped, coffee bitter as regret. Her eyes, green as the Irish sea Dad swore our blood came from, brimmed. Because the truth you unleashed? It's freeing me, but it's breaking everything. Breaking. The firm, Mom's spirit, the kid's future, my kid. The dilemma clawed. Claim him, drag Lena through a custody war that'd paint her the gold digger. Walk away, let Ethan's shadow taint his bloodline. Controversial choices, each a devil's fork. She reached across, fingers brushing mine. Electric, forbidden, and for a heartbeat, revenge tasted like ash, the echo fading to a whisper of what might have been. But Ethan didn't fade. He flipped again, leaking counter-dirt to the Sun-Times. My manipulated hack, a fabricated psych eval calling me delusional, vengeful. The public split, justice for Blakely trending beside Save Harlan Legacy, X-threads erupting in flame wars over family loyalty versus accountability. Protests clogged Daily Plaza, blue-collar holdouts waving signs for me, white-collar suits decrying economic terrorism. I became the ghost in the machine, Blakely Harlan, hero or heel. The climax I'd engineered now pinned me under its weight. Every decision a referendum on the American hustle, climb at any cost, or burn the ladder. November grayed into December, the city hunkering under steel skies, when the call came. Ethan, free on technicals, demanding a sit-down. Neutral ground, a shuttered warehouse on the Calumet, wind howling through broken panes like banshees at a wake. I arrived first, briefcase in tow, not as weapon, but witness, its leather cracked from the years, holding one last card. A notarized affidavit from Rico, detailing Ethan's prison bribes to silence witnesses. He rolled up in a black Escalade. Solo, no muscle, arrogance or olive branch. We faced off amid rusting girders, the briefcase between us like a loaded deck. You think this ends clean? He sneered, circling slow, his suit rumpled but eyes sharp. I built that firm. You? You hammered nails. Hammered nails, Dad's line, twisted into a barb. I unzipped the case, letting the affidavit flutter out, pages whispering accusations. Built it on Dad's grave. On my back. He snatched it, scanning, then laughed, hollow, unhinged. And the kid? Yours, huh? Congrats, Uncle Blakely. But blood don't change facts. I won. Won? The word ignited the powder keg. I lunged, not for blood, but the briefcase, slamming it shut on his fingers as he reached. He howled, recoiling, and in that beat of chaos, the truth spilled final. Lena's filing. Divorce. And custody. For you, if you don't press charges. The twist landed like a sucker punch. Ethan's flipped the cruelest yet, surrendering the throne to slither free, pinning his fall on marital strife. Controversial genius. Martyr him as the betrayed husband, me the interloper claiming prize. Sirens wailed distant, his insurance policy, but I held ground. Briefcase locked, the echo now a roar. It's over, Ethan. But who wins? The kid sees two monsters now. He smirked, backing toward the door, shadows swallowing him. That's America, brother. We both lose to survive. Dawn broke brittle over the warehouse district, frost etching the windshield of Mom's borrowed Civic as I drove north, the briefcase riding shotgun like a silent co-conspirator. Ethan's words festered. We both lose to survive. A bitter catechism for the Harlan Creed, forged in South Side tenements where Dad preached hustle or hunger over bowls of oatmeal stiff as mortar. Survival. It had justified every lie, every ledge we'd teetered on. Me covering his juvenile beefs, him propping my promotion with pilfered perks. But now, with the firm in receivership and our names synonymous with scandal, survival twisted into something uglier. A zero-sum game where the baby's first cry would tally the score. Lena waited at the brownstone, porch light haloing her silhouette against the brick, steam rising from a mug of something herbal. No words at first, just her hand on my arm, guiding me inside to a living room stripped bare, boxes stacked like accusations, wedding photos face down in the hearth. The briefcase thudded to the floor, unzipping on impact, papers scattering like confetti from a funeral. She knelt to gather them, pausing on the affidavit, her laugh brittle as autumn leaves. You kept fighting, even after the betrayal, the bars, the birth she'd hidden in a hasty paternity filing, sealed under Ethan's injunction until the gala blew it open. We talked till noon, sunlight slanting through blinds like prison bars, piecing the mosaic of our wreckage. She'd married Ethan for security, the firm's glow masking his rot, but stayed for the illusion of family, until the ultrasound confirmed what we'd both suspected. I thought ending it clean was mercy, she murmured, tracing the swell of her belly. For you. Inside. Mercy. The word clanged ironic, echoing my own vengeful mercy, exposing without extinguishing. But mercy's a luxury in Chicago's churn, where aldermen fall weekly and unions bury their dead with picket line eulogies. Ethan's play, ceding custody to dodge fraud raps, was peak controversy, a plea deal whispered in backrooms. Testify against his enablers, walk with a slap for mismanagement. The courts moved glacier slow, but by January's thaw, the rulings trickled. Ethan got house arrest in his Gold Coast Pidatura, a velvet cage with lake views. The firm restructured under federal watch, salvaging half the jobs. Mom's settlement, a modest chunk from the offshore clawback, bought her a quiet condo overlooking the bean. Me? Probation, community service at a youth carpentry program, where I taught kids from the projects to square frames without cutting corners. Ironic therapy, hammering out my own splinters. But the real verdict played in the streets. Ex-polls split 52-48 on, was Blakely's revenge just? Blue states cheering the populist gut punch, red-leaning threads decrying vigilante economics. Lena and I, we danced the gray, co-parenting in stolen hours, diaper runs to Jewel, midnight feedings where I'd rock the boy, little Harlan. We couldn't resist the name, his fists tiny as Dad's old gloves. Ethan visited supervised, his flips exhausted into sullen compliance, gifting onesies with a gruff from Uncle. Uncle. The demotion stung, but it fit. The villain defanged, scheming sidelined to stock tips from his cell. Yet doubt not. Was this redemption or reprieve? Reporters still hounded, one persistent hack from the Reader pitching a podcast. Briefcase betrayal, blood, bucks, and brotherhood. I declined, but the echo persisted, amplified in viral clips of the gala meltdown, remixed with trap beats for TikTok schadenfreude. Spring bloomed reluctant, dogwoods dusting the lakefront paths where I'd pushed the stroller, Lena's hand brushing mine in accidental rhythms. We'd rebuild, she said, her daddy's firm folding her into admin, my gigs scaling to foreman on a green retrofit downtown. A fresh ledger, she'd joke, but her eyes held the weight. The baby cooing oblivious, Mom's occasional visits laced with wary pride. The twist that sparked endless barroom debates? Ethan's final gambit, leaked weeks post-custody. A suicide note, forged or not, blaming the exposure for his despair. He didn't die. Faked for sympathy, the DA called it, but it polarized anew. Victim or virtuoso? Forums exploded, my inbox flooding with manifestos, some hailing me the avenger, others damning the destroyer. I chose silence, burying the briefcase in the backyard under a crabapple tree, its secrets mulching into soil for whatever grew next. Kinda happy, kinda tragic. That's the American Stitch, threads of triumph knotted with loss. Harlan legacy? It lived in the boy's laugh, in Mom's steadier hands kneading dough for pierogies, in Lena's tentative, we could try. But at night, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, Ethan's whisper haunted. Who wins? No one, maybe. Or everyone, in the surviving. The gavel fell long ago. Now it's just the echo, fading into the hum of a city that devours its own and spits out stories. Ours. Still unfolding, controversial as a windy city vote, dark as the alleys we crawled from. And that's the hook that keeps you, wondering if you'd swing the briefcase too.